So let's talk about data. In the place I start, and I recommend all my students start, is to create a list. And you can see here Ian McHarg's old list for his layer cake model, and there's many others. But really, what I do is I kind of start with a generic list of data needs for the type of project I'm working on. And I will break them out into categories similar to this, although for every project it's a little bit different. And then I simply jump over to Google. And I'll Google generic terms first. So I like to start at the local municipality level, whether that's a city government or if you're in a rural area, a county. In this case, I'm going to show you how to walk through Denver because the tutorial videos will walk through some creating a map in Denver. And so I'll just do simple search terms like Denver GIS data. And you'll get things like the Denver Open Data Catalog. And the reason I start at this level is because as a landscape architect and planner, I typically want the most precise and accurate data I can find, which by and large typically is at the lower local level. As you move up in scale to like state data or national data sets, you'll start running into more kind of aggregated data and other things that aren't quite as precise. And so here you can find all kinds of data. One thing you will find throughout when you create maps is not everywhere has the same amount of data. Cities like Denver, San Francisco, New York City have a ton of data. However, certain rural local municipalities may have almost nothing except for the state or national data sets. And that's just because data is expensive to create, to maintain, and to share. So not everywhere shares it as well. But this is kind of the strategies to find that data. Next, as I collect everything I need from the city, I could notice that I'm missing certain data sets. I could reach out to the city after I did my legwork of finding what I could find, talk to the GIS people in Denver, and I find out that Denver is part of the Denver Regional Council of Governments. And so that's just kind of a voluntary umbrella organization where multiple local municipalities and governments and cities get together to share data needs like for regional transportation or water issues, airport planning, things like that. And so I could get more data here. Now, if we go over to the next level up in Colorado for Denver's interesting because it's a city and a county all by itself. And so the next a government level up would be the state. And if you did say I was looking for geology, I could go to the Colorado Geological Survey, or I could go to the State Department of Natural Resources, might have some information, the State Parks Department. And so you can begin to search and customize your searches for certain things. Now, at the national level, when you're looking for people information, one of the best places to get that is the census. And you typically can get that through the American Fact Finder. However, to be honest, Fact Finder is incredibly hard to use. The data directly from the census and American Fact Finder is hard to work with at times. And so I really recommend that a lot of my students go to the National Historic Geographic Information System, housed at the University of Minnesota. And what this does is they aggregate a lot of the census data over time, and then they kind of do a little bit of pre-processing to make it a little easier to use, but then also that you can compare back and forth across multiple census dates. So they've kind of done a tiny bit of processing that just makes it a little bit easier to use, but it's worth its time to go there and support them. And then when I'm kind of stuck, say I'm trying to look for things like topography and I couldn't find it across the whole thing, I start looking for substitutes or appropriate substitutes. So things like if I can't find straight up contour data, I can use a substitute and I could put in specialized search terms like Denver Digital Elevation Model. And so that would allow me to generate contours because it's a digital surface model. And so I did then begin to plug in very particular search terms. So once I kind of picked all my data that I can get, I only have a couple more things maybe to cross off my list, and then I'll start targeting those as individual search criteria in Google. It really helps to kind of go through that process. before reaching out to people at city and local governments, or even state or national government, because they're really busy. They get lots of data requests. And if you can say, look, I found all this information. I'm kind of stuck here. Can you help me out? They're typically a lot more willing to reach out. And I also go through this process of creating the list, because if I send them a data request, I want to make sure I'm not coming back 2 days later to ask for more, another week to ask for even more. So that way we can build a bit of a professional rapport. And more often than not, they're incredibly encouraging and will reach out and give data requests if they're capable or allowed to. So that's data, and we'll move on to the next series of videos. Thanks.